Hello everyone, and welcome to Lore Time with the Chibi Inquisitor. Tonight's story is about the planet Betalis Free, otherwise known as Balthalame. Betalis Free, or Balthame as it is known in the Eldari lexicon, is designated as both an ice world and a mining world of the Imperium of Man. It is located in the binary Betalis system of the Talis Munus sector of Segmentum Solar. Being one of the two inhabitable planets, the other is the industrial world of Betalis 4, orbiting the twin Betalis stars. The primary star of the binary system is a massive blue giant, at least 20 times larger than Solar and 1,000,000 times more luminous. This star expels enormous amounts of stellar matter into the void surrounding it, which renders all but the outermost worlds unsuitable for human settlement due to the high levels of ionizing radiation they are afflicted with. This ejection of stellar matter is also the reason a miniature local nebula known as the Carina Nebula is present in this star system. Betalis Free was the site of the Betalis Free campaign, or the Battle of the Dawning Twilight as it was known to the Yasunari, fought in 894.M41 between the forces of the Imperium defending the system and the craft world Eldari, who sought to recover the armor of the ancient Phoenix Lord Illarith, the founder of the Shadow Spectre Aspect Warriors, who had perished on the world many Terran millennia before. An alliance of Asuriani forces from the craft worlds of Mymeria and Alatok, as well as Eldari Corsairs from the Void Dragons, Sky Raiders, and Sunblitz Brotherhood, descended on the frigid world to recover their beloved Phoenix Lord's armor before it was discovered and defiled by the human miners present on Betalis Free. In this way, the Mimerians sought to restore Iliath to fight once more for his people, since his spirit would have remained intact within his armor's spirit stone. Betalis Free was reinforced by Astra Militarum regiments drawn from the Cadian shock troops and the Elysian drop troops, as well as Titans from Legio Gryphonicus and the Space Marines from the Space Wolves chapter. After the Imperial forces succeeded in fighting the Eldari to a bloody standstill, the mysterious Xenos vanished as quickly as they had arrived. In truth, the Asani forces had recovered Iliath's armor from the depths of the Astrum 4 mining complex on the frozen planet and thus had no further interest in the world. Betalis Free was once the homeworld of a young starfaring reptilian Xenos species in the centuries following the fall of the Eldari, which was only beginning to forge its own interstellar empire. Illarith, the Eldari Phoenix Lord of the Shadow Spectre's Aspect Warriors, was gifted with a terrible vision of the future while still training under Azurman, the first of the Phoenix Lords. In it, he saw the utter destruction of Mimeria's craft world at the hands of this very race, which would eventually grow to threaten the Eldari. Struck with grief over the near destruction of the Eldari race during the fall, Illarith was unwilling to let any more of his kin be eradicated. He set out to discover the elusive craft world and help it avoid its fate. He ultimately succeeded in finding the craft world, although how he did it is clouded by various legends. The Phoenix Lord spoke to the Mymeria Seer Council of his vision, but offered them hope in preventing it from becoming true if their future enemies were destroyed at that point in time, before they became unstoppable. Yielding to the Phoenix Lord's wisdom, the Mimerian Seer Council granted him the right to take nearly half of the craft world's forces to carry out this grim task. Illarith left Mymeria with a heavy heart, but after his arrival on the craft world, his vision had crystallized. He knew that although he would succeed, it would come at the price of his life, and all those who followed him. For decades, the Eldari of Mymeria awaited the news of Iliath's victory and the return of their kin, but none came. Eventually, they had to accept that their brethren had been killed and the Phoenix Lord vanquished. The Mimerians set out to the areas of space where Iliath said the empire of their eventual destroyers would be located, to discover what became of him and his forces. Along their way, they bore witness to planets that have been sites of great battles and saw cities obliterated by what could only be Eldari weaponry. The reptilian aliens scavenging amongst the ruins were little more than savages. However, no sign of Iliath could be found. The Mimerians continued their search, and eventually reached the boundaries of the Imperium of Man. The seers of the craft world knew that the journey through such a region of space would be hazardous, and instead chose to remain in the uninhabited star system, and conceal their massive world ship in a nebula of stellar matter which, using their advanced technology, they drew out from a nearby star and enveloped themselves within. This nebula, later named the Carina Nebula by the Imperium, was located near the planet that was unbeknownst to the Mimerians as Belthame, the homeworld of the reptilian nemesis that Iliath sought to destroy. This was the planet that would eventually become the imperial mining world of Betalis 3. Betalis 3 was first discovered by the Imperium during the latter part of the Omnial Crusade, when the Crusade fleet was returning victorious from the campaign against renegade worlds in the St. Atlas constellation. During a long-range scan of the Betalis system, an Adaptus Mechanicus explorator team sent from the Crusade vessel Divine Unification discovered an ancient alien spacecraft buried in the ice of the frigid third planet circling the twin suns of Betalis. Until Xenosurvey teams could arrive on the world to examine the finding, the Betalis system was declared off-limits to all other Imperial starships by the Inquisition, and an area stretching around thousands of kilometers away from the system was planted with mines. The Inquisition's Ordo Xenos survey team confirmed that the alien vessel had been created by the Eldari. The Eldari spacecraft was secured and taken away from the planet for further examination, whilst the entire star system was scrupulously scoured by hundreds and thousands of servitors for any further alien artifacts. Decades passed as the mindless servitors carried out their task, but ultimately no further traces of any Eldari presence in the system was discovered. The Ordo Xenos contingent departed from the world after determining that the vessel had been abandoned and its pilots had escaped the planet in some other way, leaving the ice-blue primary Betalis star to drift alone in the vastness of space. The Betalis system remained uninhabited for some time following this event, but eventually the Imperium's administratum cast its gaze upon it and the rich natural resources that it contained: ores, rare elements from the stellar matter expelled from the system's pale star, heavy metals from the system's inner planets, and the valuable industrial gases that could be mined from the ice of Betalis 3. The conditions on the majority of worlds within the system were deemed too dangerous and too unsustaining to support human life, but the two outermost planets, Betalis 3 and Betalis 4, were declared fit for human habitation by the Administratum's bureaucrats. The colonization of Betalis 3 then began in earnest. Over the course of 4 standard decades, 57 million Imperial citizens were transported from an overpopulated hive world, the name of which is now lost in the enormous archives of the sector's histories, maintained by the Imperium's vast bureaucracy. When the colonists arrived, they stared at awe as their craft flew over the vast areas of featureless frozen landscape, a world so fundamentally different from the cramped human-infested hive cities that they had left behind that it boggled the mind. Any of the new colonists who ventured out into the planet's wintry surface were quickly overcome by the frigid conditions, or were driven mad by agoraphobia. The wide open landscapes of the world were so alien to the people who have grown up in the confines of a hive city that many a psyche simply could not bear it. The colonists of Betalis 3 also quickly came to realize that their brave new lives they have been promised by the Administratum came at a price, one which had to be first repaid through generations of labor in the mines, already been dug into the planet's crust, or in overpowering heat and fumes of the recently constructed massive smelting plants. 12 generations of the people of Betalis 3 have been born and died since that time, and the original colonists' descendants are still chained by the Administratum's mandate to the planet and its industry until their forefathers' debt for the new opportunity has been deemed fully repaid by the Imperium. The only legitimate way of escaping their ancestors' due for the people of Betalis is to enlist in one of the Imperial Guard regiments that are raised from time to time as the planet's human type to the Departamento Monitorium. For centuries, the Eldari of Mymeria sent out rangers to search for the lost Phoenix Lord, although to no effect. When Iliath was finally found, it was not by the Eldari, but by the human colonists on Betalis Free, burrowing into the planet's crust in search of a new natural resource to exploit. Broke into a massive cave complex, the site of Iliath's final battle against the alien enemies of Mymeria. In this last fight, the Mymerians' foes have been defeated, but as the Phoenix Lord saw in his vision, at the cost of his and the war's host lives. When the humans entered the cave, they triggered an arcane defense system located in Iliath's armor that was designed to protect the Phoenix Lord's dormant spirit. This killed all of the intruding humans and alerted the nearby craft world of the armor's presence. The Mymerians, now possessing the knowledge of where the Phoenix Lord had perished, forged alliances with other Eldari forces and prepared for war to recover the ancient savior. Betalis Free was the site of the Betalis Free campaign, fought in 894.M41, between the forces of the Imperium defending the system and the Eldari that sought to recover the armor of the ancient Phoenix Lord Iliath, the founder of the Shadow Spectre Aspect Warriors. The Eldari of Craftworld Mymeria brokered an alliance with Craftworld Alatok, as well as Eldari Corsairs from the Void Dragons, Sky Raiders, and Sunblitz Brotherhood, who were aligned with it. These forces descended on the frigid world to recover the Phoenix Lord's armor before it was defiled by the human miners present on the Betalis Free. The Mymerians sought to reanimate Iliath to fight once more for his people, as his spirit would have remained intact within his armor's spirit stone. Betalis Free was reinforced by Imperial Guard regiments drawn from the Cadian Shock Troops and the Elysian Drop Troops, as well as Titans from Legio Gryphonicus and the Space Wolf Space Marines. After the Imperial forces fought the Eldari to a bloody standstill, the mysterious Xenos vanished as quickly as they arrived, after they had recovered Iliath. Although the Imperium hailed the Battle of Betalis Free as a great victory over the mysterious Xenos, the truth well known to the Inquisition and to the Ordo Xenos was wholly different. The Eldari never intended to conquer the Imperial mining world, which had no value to them. Their only interest was the Phoenix Lord's Iliath's armor, which, despite the efforts of the Ordo Xenos Inquisitor Lord Hestephus Dangst, who commanded the Imperial forces on Betalis Free, they succeeded in recovering and departed from the world as soon as they took possession of it. Betalis Free's infrastructure was severely damaged as a result of the war. Aside from the damage to facilities as a result of combat operations, the initial phase of the Eldari attack saw the destruction of nearly the entire network of communication relay stations spanning the surface of 3 of the planet's continents. This damage would take time to repair in the frigid conditions of the world. Beyond the veil cast down by the disabled relay stations, the virtually undefended population suffered most. True to their darker natures, some of the Eldari Corsairs did not remain on the eastern continents of the planet where the actual fighting took place, and instead raided the desperate human settlements. It came as no surprise to the Imperial authorities who had encountered Eldari Corsairs before, that when the Eldari war host retreated, entire communities living in the planet's icy wilderness had simply vanished. The Craftworld Mymeria left its longtime hiding place in the Carina Nebula in the Betalis system after recovering the Phoenix Lord, and because the Eldari no longer maintained it, this stellar phenomenon, which was previously unexplorable to the Imperium, eventually dissipated. This change allowed mankind to gaze within its region of the system for the first time in history, where they will discover that nothing of interest now resides. Thank you for joining me for this in-depth look into Betalis Free and the Betalis Free campaign. Join me next time for more 40k lore. Stay safe, friends.